Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Pod Jerky. On today's episode, we have a very special guest. Her name is Constance Jones, and she is a published author as well as a philanthropist. Welcome to the show, Constance.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start off with how are you doing right now? How are you coping with the whole COVID situation and quarantine?
It's difficult to be stuck in the house, all the time and not being able to socialize as much as I would like to. And just the whole economy and everyone dealing with all of these struggles and, challenges right now. So it's not the best time, but my husband and I are doing well. We're able to both work from home and, we have a comfortable home. So it's not like we're not enjoying ourselves in the time that we have together. But yeah, we're coping. All my family and friends are safe and doing well.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I guess the main thing is that everybody's healthy, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I don't know if you know this, but this show is in Canada. And have you been on a Canadian podcast yet?
I have not. No.
So this is going to be your Canadian debut. Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. So your publicist had actually reached out on Facebook and asked for you to come on to talk about a few things, mainly about your book, infertility, and I guess the standard of care for Black women in the healthcare system when experiencing loss. There's so much to talk about, but why don't you just give us a brief background about yourself right now?
So I was born and raised in San Diego, California. I am one of 9 children. And, we grew up very poor and in a dysfunctional home. My father was an alcoholic, so my mom was a single mother majority of the time. And, we just had a lot of struggles growing up, just making sure that, we were able to make ends meet. My mom was working all the time. And at the age of 14, I got really, really, really depressed. And I tried to commit suicide as a teenager. So that happened. But thank God I survived that. And then at 15, I was diagnosed with generalized epilepsy. So that was another layer of things that I had to learn to deal with and accept and move forward. So those types of things have happened throughout my life. And then I was the first person in my home to go to college and graduate. So throughout my entire life, I've always been one to strive for more, to keep going, to not let my circumstances dictate my future. And I know that, we all have pasts, and sometimes we allow those things that happen to us that are painful and that hurt to keep us from following our dreams and moving forward in life. So I'm a strong believer in believing in yourself, accepting help when you need it, and just being a strong person and being able to transition from where you were to where you want to be. Life's all about transformation. And I wrote my book, Emerging Butterfly, to inspire other people to make sure that, that they are following their dreams, and just, to let them know that from everywhere I've been, if I could get through it, they could get through it. And just giving some tips, because I think there's power in each of our stories. And if we're not willing to share them, how can we let other people know that they're not alone in theirs?
Right. I believe that too. I mean, that's a good message to send out to people, because sometimes people feel that they're alone in certain situations. They don't know where to turn. And sometimes it turns out to be a bad situation for them. And at least if you have some kind of a message to turn on or to look at, then you might be able to get through it. Because, I find that some people are afraid to speak with their families about it or with their friends about it. But if they're able to get into a book like yours, or to speak to somebody like you who they don't necessarily know on a personal basis, then they may be able to get a little bit of insight into what's going on and to show that they're not alone.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's so very important. And, being in the position that I am now, during my philanthropy work, I work with a lot of youth and a lot of families that, are in the same situation that I was in growing up. And people would look at me and think that, my life's been perfect because, I've gone to college and, I'm well established in life, and, I didn't deal with any of the things I dealt with. But by sharing my story, I'm able to let people know that it's not always all good. It's not, rainbows and everything your whole life. Like, I had to work for it. So I don't want anyone to give up on themselves and wish that, they were given like this golden spoon. That would be nice if we all got it, but we don't all get that. So how can we recognize where we are to get to where we want to be? And if that means, education, if that means getting support, if that means therapy, if that means, reaching out to other people, like, we have all those resources available to us. We just have to look for them and be willing to take that leap and that journey to get to where we want to be.
Now, it might be a little bit different between Canada and the US. Now, if you're going through a therapy session or some kind of education system, something like that, will it be costly to somebody in that situation? I know here we have some kind of free programs that are offered to people that are going through troubling times, but I'm not sure exactly what the protocol is in the US.
In the US, I mean, for me, I got scholarships and I took out loans for college. So that's how, I was able to do that. But I know like there are a lot of community colleges and things like that, state universities that are, or at least were during my time, a lot less expensive. So those are options. And again, there are scholarships. But I also worked really hard. I worked 2 jobs while I was in college to be able to afford, where I went and living and all my expenses and things like that. The loans didn't cover that. So I still had to work really hard, but I made it happen. And then as far as like therapy goes, I didn't get therapy growing up. Like Black people, a lot of times, at least as far as community that I lived in, nobody went to therapy ever. Like we didn't even talk about it. But as an adult, I realized that a lot of the traumas that I experienced as a youth were following me throughout my life. And I was living in this circle. I was recreating a lot of the things that I experienced growing up in my, adult life. And I didn't want to keep that circle going. So how was I going to get out of that? And so for me, I needed therapy to start talking out some of those feelings, expressing, how I felt and finding ways to, whether it's journaling or meditating or, just acceptance and forgiveness, all the things that you need to do and just self-reflection and growth and how can I make that happen for myself. I had to learn all of those tools and it took a while, but, and I still go back if I'm going through a certain situation and I might need help. Sometimes you don't want to talk to a best friend. Sometimes you want to go to a third party who, is not going to say anything to anybody else, but you can talk and you can get it out and you can work through it. But for therapy, yeah, it can be expensive, but there are ways to get support from local nonprofit organizations that can help you to get the help that you need.
We're going to take a quick break to show some love to another podcast.
Hey, it's John Francois. Join me and my co-host Main Squeeze Mary every week for some crazy, fun pop culture chatter. It's called The Anything Show. Here's a taste.
Did you know that Japan has banned screaming on roller coasters to try to limit the spread of coronavirus as amusement parks reopen? You cannot scream in Japan on a roller coaster. I wouldn't be able to do it. I mean, you've been on a roller coaster with me, Mary. I'm almost on the verge of crying. I curse a million different curse words.
You said every single curse word there is.
Yeah, and there were people laughing that were around my age, and then there were kids next to me that were wondering what the heck these new words were that they were learning. I mean, it was insane. So
after they get off the ride, they say, "Mommy, Daddy, what does this mean?" And they're like, "Where did you hear that?"
Find The Anything Show with John Francois on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. And you can also follow us on Facebook at The Anything Show and on Instagram at Anything Show Francois.
Yeah, that's awesome. And speaking of, I guess, not wanting to speak to best friends or family members, I was listening to some of your podcasts or some of the interviews that you have done online already. And you talked about fertility issues growing up and up until now. And I can tell you, I don't know if you've listened to the episode that we have on our podcast. My wife and I went through fertility issues and we have a whole episode on it. And it became very difficult to, I guess, talk with your friends about it and talk with your family about it. It's a whole nother thing to actually bring up with the people that you're close to because you see it happening with everybody else. They're all getting pregnant. They're all having kids.
Yeah.
And it becomes very difficult to speak about with your friends.
Yes.
So we actually did go into a little bit of therapy as well. And we had to do certain things just to have certain procedures done as well. Now, do you want to talk about your, I guess, infertility as well? Like you were
Absolutely.
Speaking about that in some of the interviews I was listening to.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, my mom, she was one of 9. So she was very fertile, right? So I never thought, I'd have a problem having children. It was never even something I considered. The first time I got pregnant, I just assumed I would have a baby. I've had 5 miscarriages. So, I've been on this road for a while. But yeah, the first time I was young, I was like 22 and it happened. And I'm like, okay, well, great, I'll have this baby. And then it didn't happen. And so then, I got pregnant the second and third time and it still didn't happen. And finally married my husband, my second marriage, and we got pregnant and we were excited. It was the longest I'd carried a baby. I was all the way up to 19 weeks. Before, I'd always lost my babies like in the first trimester. So this one, I was like, really far along, and I thought, okay, this one it's gonna work out. And because of the epilepsy that I have and the medication that I take and the history of the miscarriages and having to get all the procedures done, the medical abortions and the scar tissue and everything that developed, it just made it that more difficult for me to have a baby, a successful pregnancy. So I was like at 43% of a chance to have a recurring miscarriage after that third one. So, my percentage was already really high anyway, but I didn't know that. I just thought I was healthy. I was doing well. I was on my medication. It shouldn't have been a problem. I talked to my doctor. Everything was supposed to be okay. And it just didn't work out that way. My baby that was 19 weeks, she had hydrocephalus, which is basically the fluid in the brain. And they recommend that we terminate the pregnancy. So that was really difficult because before that, it was like I didn't have a choice. It just happened and I had to go through a procedure. But this time I had to make the choice to end that. And that was like the worst experience that I've ever had. And then, talking to friends about it, like my first couple of miscarriages, I was hurting and it was hard. And the last two, I did get some therapy to work through it. But you see your friends having babies and it just comes so easily to them and they're happy and you want to be happy for them. I had to give a baby shower, right around the time that I lost it because I had already signed up to do this. And I couldn't at the last minute say, no, I can't throw your baby shower because I just lost my baby. And I just couldn't do it. So, and I think people who are going through these types of challenges, they don't always understand and don't know how to give support. And, they either distance themselves from it or they have good intentions, but they don't necessarily know how to talk to you about it. So, you get both sides of the spectrum. So sometimes for me, I just avoided that altogether because I didn't feel like I wanted to bring other people down or feel like, I'm just sitting here as this victim. Like, why me? Why can't I do it? I went and I got the help that I needed. But it's a struggle. At this point in my life, I've decided not to continue to try to have children. I use my philanthropy work with helping the youth and the families as a way to work through that grief and give back and still find purpose and fulfillment in my life. But going through those struggles are really, really difficult because you feel alone, you feel ashamed. And for me, I felt like my body betrayed me. I already lost control of the way that my body performs when I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And then to have it again on the opposite end where I have no control whether or not I can keep this pregnancy. So I just felt like I was very isolated and no one I knew had really gone through it. I had one friend who ended up doing IVF, but after she got IVF, she had her twins and she carried the baby and everything was great. So people struggle, but the people I knew that struggled still ended up with their baby in the end, and I didn't.
Right. See, we went through the same kind of situation where we see all of our friends having kids and our family members, our brothers, our cousins having kids. And we look at it and we say, we want to be so happy. We showed them that we're so happy. But at the same time, you're hurting inside because you're saying, why can't we do this as well? We actually ended up going through IUI. We went through IVF treatments and we still weren't able to conceive. And at this point, we did stop trying to have children now because we've gotten a little bit older. We're in our 40s and we just stopped trying to do it. But we did have our friends support, but like you said, it was hard for them to understand what we were going through as well. And it was hard for them to talk about it. So you felt like you had nobody to turn to in that situation and you felt like you were by yourself. And that was the difficult part of it. And I actually saw on your Instagram page, you had a picture that said, why don't you adopt or something along those lines? You get those questions from your friends because they don't understand either. They don't understand, oh, don't worry, it's going to happen. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like we haven't looked at those options already. And it actually made my wife cry when she saw that. Yeah. Because she saw that picture and she's like, you know what? We've experienced that. We've gone through that. We've heard that same thing, and it's almost as it's kind of shaming women when you're asking, why don't you adopt? And it kind of made my wife tear up and she was like, it's so true.
It is really, it's painful because, like I said, it's intentions. They have good intentions. They're saying like, oh, well, don't give up. It's okay. You can still have children. There are still other ways for you to do it. But what if I wanted to have my own biological child and I wanted to experience the pregnancy process? Not to say that there's anything wrong with adoption, because I think it's great and it's important for people to do, but everyone has their different paths. And this is the path that I wanted to go down. and it didn't work out for me. So yeah, I get all kinds of stuff like, well, it'll happen. I'm in my 40s now too. So that's another reason I'm like, I'm okay. But, if the whole, it'll happen when it happens, and, the adoption or the surrogacy, that was another thing. And they don't think about people not having, some people don't have the funds to do that either. And so they still want to. So it's a slippery slope when people have good intentions, but they don't really know the pain that those statements can cause because they're not going through it and they haven't educated themselves on how to support you. So that's just one of their things, like, oh, there's a solution. Just do this, and that's not like that. I can't go pick up a baby from a store and be like, okay, I'm adopted, everything's great. It doesn't work that way. And why are we the only ones that, the people who can't have children are the only ones that should be thinking about adoption? Like, other people can do it too. If you already have kids, you can still do that, but I don't think a lot of people look at it that way unless they really know someone who's going through it and have had that type of honest conversation with them.
Right. And I think if they haven't experienced it, then that's their way of trying to help you out and trying to push you through the tough times. It's just that we've already experienced that. We've already gone through those situations. So we already know. It's not like, we look at it and go, oh, why didn't we think about, this situation or this situation? We already know, we've been down that road. So, and I get it. Like, their intentions are great, but at the end of the day, we've already been there, done that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, have you gone through any of that? Is it that you had your miscarriages? Now, did you move on to IUI and IVF, or did you not go through that route?
I didn't go through that route. The one I was talking about where I was 19 weeks, I had one other pregnancy after that, and it ended within the first trimester as well. And I was already 38 at that time. So I was at the point where I didn't want to put my body through it anymore, like physically or mentally, right? Because with having gotten that far along, my body changed, right? I'm feeling it in different areas from the baby move. Like, you're gaining this weight. Things are changing, right? And to go put your body through that so many times, and then the mental part of it, just losing it, and it was too much for me. I just couldn't do it anymore. And so I didn't even think about IUI or IVF. It just wasn't something that I wanted to do anymore. I didn't want to spend the money on it, but it wasn't even the money. I didn't want to try to be pregnant anymore. I just didn't want to put my body through it. I don't think I could. I think my husband, he would have been okay with us trying again. But after we went to therapy and really talked about it, and I was able to express my feelings about how I felt and what the toll it took on my body, I think he understood then. And he said, okay, well, I'm happy with you. This is the life that we're going to have. We can still have fulfillment, still have purpose. If at any point in time you want to change your mind, then we can review it. But if not, I'm totally fine with it because I understand and I don't want to put you through that again. And so we just decided to do something different. Yeah.
We're going to take another break to help out another podcast.
Every 73 seconds, someone is sexually assaulted in the United States. We are here to tell you are not alone. Blackbird, an advocacy podcast, tells the stories of victims and survivors of true crime with a focus on the support these survivors need. We provide information for those who have endured trauma and for those who love someone who has. Tune in every Sunday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts to hear these stories of hope, survival, and empowerment. No one should go through this alone. We believe you.
That was Sarah from Blackbird, an advocacy podcast. Make sure you tune in and hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, definitely. So what kind of strain do you think it put on a relationship? I know with my wife and I, we were there for each other. The first time that we went through the actual IUI procedure, we kind of got our hopes up because we didn't know what to expect, but we were like, okay, you know what? This is going to work. We have a good feeling about this. And then we got the phone call saying, guess what? It was negative, and we kind of broke down. But I mean, we had each other's backs. We were there for each other. We supported each other. We talked about what we were going to go through next. What kind of effect did it have on your relationship?
Okay, so I've been married twice. My first marriage is where I had the first 3 miscarriages. And so that one, I think it took a really tough hit. We didn't make it because I just think, among other things, like the miscarriages just put like another layer on top of like the struggles we were already having in our relationship. So I feel like that was just kind of like one of the straws that just broke it. With this marriage and the last 2 pregnancies that we had together, I think the hardest part for us is not that we didn't support each other, because we did, but I feel like as men and women, we grieve differently. And I was depressed for quite a few weeks. I didn't really want to go anywhere. I didn't want to do anything. It just, I was in a bad place. And he still got up and went to work every day. And it's like, you gotta power through it. I'm like, you don't understand where I am, how I'm feeling, how my mind is going. Like, you don't understand. And he's like, well, I do understand, because I'm grieving too, but we do it differently. And so even though he was able to get up and go and do his daily activities and thought, okay, it's been a week or two, you should be able to get up and get going again. It doesn't always work that way. So I think that was a big challenge for us, just kind of coming to terms with the way that we grieve and the way that we get past it and are able to move forward. It took me a while longer than it did for him, and we're in a good place now, but it was a strain for a few months just because I wasn't feeling like 100% myself.
And everybody handles things differently, right? I mean, I could be the same as going to work every day because it would take things right off my mind. It would distract me. And then you could have my wife who was home for a couple of days just because she was upset and she wanted to be left alone with her own thoughts. So everybody handles it differently, and you can't expect the other person to handle it the same exact way that you do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So you wanted to touch again on, I guess, the standard of care for, I guess, Black women that are experiencing loss in the healthcare system.
Mm-hmm. So this is something that, with everything that's been going on in the world and, the Black Lives Matter movement, and just kind of seeing the institutionalized racism and things that we experience here in the U.S. especially, I started doing research because I didn't know a lot about my history. And the more I started looking at things, I started looking more into the healthcare system, because I've had my own challenges when going to the doctor. Like my third pregnancy, I had spotting a few days before I actually had that miscarriage. And I called my doctor, and my doctor, not saying anything bad, but it was a white woman. And I called her and I said, hey, I'm spotting. I think it might be a good idea for me to come in and check in and just make sure everything is okay. I'm at the 12-week point, and she's like, oh no, that's just normal. And I'm like, well, the first two I started with spotting, and then I had a miscarriage. Are you sure? She's like, oh, just wait till your next appointment. You're fine, unless you're bleeding heavily. You don't need to worry about it. Well, I'll see you in a week or so. So I'm like, okay. So I went through my day-to-day, went shopping and everything. And then I'm at the store, and all of a sudden I get these cramps, I get dizzy, and then I start bleeding really heavily, like down my legs, and I pass out, and I wake up in the hospital. So I hemorrhaged and I lost the baby. And the thing is, could that have been caught before if she wouldn't have dismissed me and my feelings and said, oh no, I know best, instead of taking in consideration what I was saying, how I was feeling? It wouldn't have taken anything for her to say, yeah, come on in, let me just take a look, to at least care. And I felt like she didn't care. I didn't feel valued, that my voice was valued. And so when I was doing all this research and learning more about the healthcare system, that experience, among others that I had, really stuck out to me. And so I started looking more about what are Black women going through in the medical, when they're in the medical system and they're pregnant. And surprisingly, I found out they're 3 to 4 times more likely to die during birth. And I was just like, than white women, than other people of color, Black women are really struggling when it comes to delivering. And we always hope, everyone hopes, when they get pregnant and they have this baby, that, I just want my baby to be healthy. I just want my baby to be healthy. I don't care what it is, But Black women, they have to think, well, not only do I want my baby to be healthy, but I want to make sure I survive delivery so that I can raise my child. And I can't even imagine, that's the most horrible thing to have to think about. And the fact that many of us don't even know that is the case, then we're not creating experiences in a birth plan to make sure that we can ensure the best possible scenario. And it's hard, right? Because a lot of Black women who are in the poor social economic status, they don't have access to the healthcare that a lot of other people have, right? Government funding, has shut down a lot of the local clinics and hospitals. So they need to go to the hospital. They have to travel far. And a lot of them, they're working full time, or they're working 2 jobs, and they're not making a lot of money. Then, they don't have time to do that. They can't take off work, get sick leave, and they may not have benefits. So when they finally do go to the hospital, they're usually far into their pregnancy before they even see an OBGYN to even get checked out. So the prenatal care starts a lot later for them. And then during the postpartum period is where a lot of times women will die because they've done the hemorrhaging or the heavy blood loss because things haven't been monitored, right? And that happens in the postpartum phase, and they don't have any more insurance, right? It runs out during that period. And so again, there's an area where the healthcare is missing. There's a gap. And so what do we do? How do we educate people so that they're more aware of these type of things that are happening? It's really sad, but I think awareness is so important because I mean, you can always make sure that, you know how to ask the right questions when you do go to the doctor. A lot of us don't know. What does it mean for you to what's your response time if I call you? What is the birth time going to be like? How do you treat, your patients? What should I expect? All of those things. If you don't know what to ask, you can end up with a practitioner who feels like you don't know anything about what it's like to have a baby, and they make the decisions for you because they feel like you probably won't understand the terminology of what they're saying because you've gone in and you're unprepared, expecting them to be the expert, but you have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think in this world right now, so much awareness has to be brought up for a whole bunch of things. It's not just, I guess, the healthcare system, but just a whole lot of things right now that are going on in the world. So to bring awareness up for that would be a great thing. I read a statistic online the other day, and it was a study done out of the University of Michigan. And it said that 32% of Black women they actually said that they feel incomplete if they didn't have their own biological children. And that's a high stat. Do you know why that stat would be so high?
Yes, because I mean, I don't want to take it too far back, but if you go back to slavery, we were used a lot for breeding, right? To breed more slaves so that we could do the work in the fields. And so we've always been, it's been, I don't know, stereotype that we are super fertile, right? So we grew up thinking that this is just something natural that we do, society, our family, it's just normal. We're supposed to be able to have kids. And we don't, at least for me, a lot of us don't know people within our community that have struggled, because if they have struggled, they've done it in silence. And so, when it happens to us, it's like, well, why can't I? Why am I the only one? I'm supposed to be fulfilling this purpose and I'm not able to, and it's not normal. And why are all my sisters and brothers and, cousins and everything being able to have babies and I'm not? So then when you tell for instance, I told my mom that I was having these struggles, and she's like, oh, well, just keep trying. It'll happen. I had all these babies. Just keep trying, and I'm like, that's not it. It is hard. I felt like I was less of a woman. I felt broken. I felt that I wasn't complete because I wasn't able to create this family. And I think it's just because of the way that we've been taught growing up. It's that Black women are fertile. You're supposed to have children. And if you don't talk about it, or there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, that was interesting. I found that as a really high stat, and because I don't do research on a lot of statistics and numbers and stuff like that in the healthcare system, I found that very, very high just for myself to see that number was at that 32%. So, I mean, I know a lot of people go through a lot of this with struggles and don't talk about it, or now I know that they feel the way that they feel with being incomplete, with not being able to have their own biological children.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking because, at least for me, I wanted to see a replica of myself, right? And see what that was like. And, when you're not able to do something that is expected of you that other women are able to do, you end up comparing yourself to them and wondering why, they can have something that I can't, and they're able to complete their purpose as a woman, basically, you know what I mean? Fulfilling this biological part that is supposed to be working. And yeah, when you don't experience that, it is heart-wrenching. For me, acceptance and giving that up, that was hard. It was really hard. But at some point you have to decide, is that going to be part of what defines you as a person, as a woman, whether or not you can have a biological child, or is it the impact that you make within your life, the purpose that you fill, and how you're able to help others? If you stay stuck in that space where, you feel like you're not enough because of this one thing, then, it will end up terrorizing you until you're able to accept it and move on.
I agree. Now, what advice can you give to turn grief into strength?
For that, I would say I feel like when anyone is in a really bad space, sometimes it just helps to get out, take a walk, get out and help someone. Helping someone, I think it brings so much joy. At least for me, it brought so much joy that I was able to let go of some of the things that I was dealing with, because I saw people in worse situations than I was. And I was able to say, wow, I might be going through this, and that doesn't take away any of my pain, but I know that I could do something to help someone else. So, but for me also, just therapy was great. Journaling was really, really helpful. Talking to my husband and, talking to some of my friends and just taking time to reflect. I took some time off work just to give my, my mind and body a rest when I was going through some of those really difficult times. I exercised to get myself healthy and get my mind calm. So there are a lot of different things that you can do that can aid in your healing process. But one of the main things I would say is to, once you're able to get out and do something to help someone else, and that always brought me joy.
Yeah, I mean, the way that my wife and I looked at it was, we can't have kids of our own, but we know all of our friends have kids. My brother and his wife have 3 kids, and we're just going to be the best aunt and uncle that anyone could ever imagine. And we're going to be the best to our kids, our friends' kids as well. We're going to do everything we can for them. We're going to help them out with whatever we can. And we know that we're going to make a difference in their lives. So, I mean, that's what we took away from it, from not being able to have kids. We wanted to turn that negative into a positive as well.
Absolutely. And that's what my foundation, Elevate Foundation, does. Like, we've helped so many different nonprofits. Right now, I'm working with Girls Rising, and it's a mentorship for young disadvantaged women or girls. And we've sponsored STEM events. We've gone and worked with them one-on-one. Right now, I'm working on some cool little book club packages for them. So while they're in, quarantine, they can read and we can do a book club together and just talk and, just supporting them. I have 12 nieces and nephews. So again, like you, I try to be the best auntie, I can be. And, my husband is the same. We just try to make sure that we're there for them and we're helping kids. We just want to help kids. And if we can't have our own, these will be the kids that we never had.
And I've seen that you've partnered with Detour, Ronald McDonald House, Feeding San Diego, a whole bunch of them. Did they have any significance to you?
Yes, definitely. The groups like Detour, Girls Rising, anything like working with young women that are in disadvantaged situation, I really identify with them based on my past. And so I had people in my life that stuck out to me that were beacons of hope and an inspiration. And so I want to be that for these young women. And then when it comes to places like Ronald McDonald House, I've had family members, nieces and nephews that have been in accidents and they had to go there, and they didn't have a lot of money, but the Ronald McDonald House helped them and sheltered them and fed them and did all those things. And so that's one of the things that we decided that we wanted to do. And we do it several times a year, and we'll go sponsor one of the meals. And then we actually go and we volunteer, and we bring groups of volunteers with us. And the greatest thing about that is we are able to get some of the young women or young men that we help in their families. One of the things we ask them is, hey, so great we're able to do this for you. It would be really great the next event that we have, but we need some volunteers. If you can come help us, that'd be great. And the last time we did that at Ronald McDonald House, we had 20 some odd, additional volunteers that we didn't expect, and they didn't have enough work for us to do. So, you know what I mean? Those kind of things where you're paying it forward and you're helping other people to realize the importance of that, that is really something that speaks to us. And we want to continue to do things like that.
With the Elevate Foundation, is it that is your full-time career right now, or do you do this on top of your career?
I do this on top of my career. All of this is on top of my career. So I have a regular 9 to 5, although it's flexible now with this work from home situation, a little bit more flexible. But yeah, this is all outside of it. And because ours is a foundation, not technically a nonprofit, this is our own funds that we're using. We set aside, funds every year that we use just to donate to different nonprofits that we feel fall in line with our goals of inspiring others, uplifting, and helping to rebuild communities. So if I feel like their vision and their mission falls in line with that, then we like to support them. And we don't just give money. We also want to make sure that we are volunteering and spending our time helping, and we're not just writing a blank check. For us, that's not what we want to do. We want to be a part of the process and do the work as well. But yeah, it's something that we do outside. This is our 5th year, and we will have given over $100,000 of our own funds to help the organization. So we're really proud of that. Yeah, we just want to keep doing it.
Wow, that's amazing. That's a lot of money to be able to give back into the community and to help out.
Thank you. Yeah, we love to do it. We've helped high school kids and given out scholarships for college. Just, things that my husband came from a disadvantaged background as well. He had to work really hard to bring himself up. And so being able to do that for someone else is really important to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to take one more break to help out another podcast.
Hey, everyone. I am Nick.
And I'm Russ.
And if you're looking for a podcast about current events that's well-informed, highly educated, and safe to share with your whole family,
that's not us.
Nope, it's not. But here at the Nick and Russ Don't Know Anything podcast, we have an opinion about everything and don't mind sharing it.
That we do. New episodes every Wednesday and Saturday. Check us out at nickandruss.com.
And find us on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more, including YouTube. Thank you, and I love you all. Mwah!
That was Nick and Russ from Nick and Russ Don't Know Anything. Make sure you tune in and hit that subscribe button.
Okay, so now I want to get in a little bit about the emerging butterfly. We haven't got to really speak on that yet. Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to read that yet. But if you want to give a little bit of a background, don't give away too much of it because you do want people to go and purchase the book.
Yeah.
So basically give people just a background on what the book's all about.
So the background is just basically, it's a memoir. So it's about my life. And I've talked about a few of the things that I've struggled with here with you today on the podcast. But this just really gives, you have a seat to my life. You're in the seat, you're watching me go through all of these different challenges. And I show you how I was able to get through them. And so I feel like in this book, I cover suicide and depression. I go through my infertility challenges. I also talk about, my relationship with my parents and where I am now in life and how I'm able to continue to grow and love and help and be fulfilled in the life that I have today. But it's not easy. So, my whole thing is about transformations are an inside job. And how do you make that transformation? And I walk you through my process of how I've gotten there. But yeah, I think a lot of people are able to resonate with certain pieces of the book because I think, if you haven't dealt with depression, you may have dealt with infertility, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's just about going on my life journey with me and seeing how I was able to evolve and grow. And I hope that it will help other people to do the same.
Yeah, 100%. And where can people find your book?
It is on Amazon and also on, Barnes & Noble. It's basically anywhere you go to purchase your books, it will be there. It'll be listed there. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So before I wrap up this interview today, I want to thank you for coming on firstly.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And do you want to give out any of your social media accounts where anyone can reach you or anything that you want to plug right now?
Yes, absolutely. So my website is ConstanceGJones.com, and you can find out a lot about me there. My Instagram is ConstanceG.Jones. And I just, there's all kinds of fun stuff there. I have a Facebook, which is also Constance Jones. I am Constance Jones. So you can check me out there. But yeah, that's where you can reach me if you like. You can also check out our foundation. It's Elevate.Foundation. And there you can see all of the work that we've been doing within our community.
I'm going to ask you this question because I tend to ask this question to a lot of people when working with social media. Do you handle all of your accounts on your own?
No. I used to. It's so funny because I'm 40, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not, I haven't evolved with the tech, right? But I just was never a huge social media person. And so, I have my personal little Facebook page and that was it. But once I decided I was going to read the book and write the book and have to brand and do all of that stuff, I realized I needed a little bit of help to get that off the ground. So I do have someone that helps me a little bit with some of the posting and everything, but it's definitely a collaborative thing.
Yeah, right now with the podcast, I'm handling all the social media accounts and I find it is just time consuming. And I almost want to have somebody take care of mine for myself as well, because it takes up a lot of your time. And it's not that I don't love it, but I also have a 9-to-5 job. I'm off for the summer because I work in the school system. So I have a little bit more time right now. But when I go back to work in September, I'm not going to have time for all this. So it's just, it's fun to find out when you have guests on who handles the social social media accounts to see if they actually can handle it themselves as well.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, no.
Yeah, I'm in that boat too. I know I'm in the same boat, and it gets really tough.
Yes. You gotta love it, I think, in order to really spend a ton of time on it. Because it's overwhelming. And then it's also, you got to make sure you're managing the engagement, right? Do people even care about what I'm posting? So there's trial and error in that as well until you kind of get in your groove. So yeah, definitely having something with that is important for me.
Well, even before the podcast started, I was not on Twitter. I was not on Instagram. I was like you. I had my Facebook. I'm 41, so I'm around the same age as you. So I was just on the personal Facebook, and I didn't have it. So I had to learn all of this stuff now, and I'm starting to learn a little more and more here and there, and seeing what little tricks you can do. But still, it's still very time consuming. So it's tough. But hey, if you want to get to where you want to get, then that's what you got to do.
You got to put in the work. You definitely got to put in the work. It took me 1.5 years to write my book, and yeah, I don't know where I found the time. I was working at night and in the morning, YouTube videos or how to self-publish and everything. Those are my best friend. And then I started, watching those videos for social media. But yeah, it's you got a learning curve, and you got to put in the work in order to be able to be successful at whatever it is that you want to do in life. So.
Yeah, 100%. It's a new game to us. So at the end of the day, we're learning and we're going with it, and we're going to do whatever we can to get to where we want to go.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So everybody go out to Amazon, either Barnes and Noble, go and pick up Constance's book. You can order it online. You can get it in the stores when the stores do reopen. I'm not sure if they're open down there yet or not. Are your stores open right now, or are you guys still?
You know what? We went back down on a second closure. So now, no.
Okay, so everybody order online.
Yeah.
Online. Yeah. Perfect. And we want to thank you for coming on the show. We're happy to be your first Canadian show.
Thank you.
We're very glad to have you on there. It was a great conversation. And if you ever want to do it again, you are more than welcome to come back on the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed my time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And as always, stay safe, be kind to each other, and we'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Here we go now. Play that beat.
Hot jerky.